Now, the big truth that I learned, I was surprised about, was the dropping of the atomic bomb. We've all learned in school that the atomic bomb was dropped by order of Harry S. Truman so that millions of lives could be saved in America, so that the militaristic focused Japanese army wouldn't further invade across the Pacific, because they were very hell-bent, you could say, because he had all the kamikaze pilots blowing up naval ships just to destroy our fleet and resources. You had all these other old Japanese samurai codes that prominent in the Japanese army, a lot of sacrifice. And the Japanese were pretty hell-bent on their domination into the world, into the Pacific. Now, in June and July, the European theater was over. Nazi Germany had already surrendered. And Russia and America were talking with each other about what to do with the Pacific and Japan. They had agreed that Russia would get involved at a certain date, sometime in August or September. And America had been intercepting communications from Japan, within Japan, that they were talking about terms of surrender, terms of peace with America. Because the Japanese government officials and the emperor had realized, our economy is tanking. It's not good right now. Our people are suffering, and we're getting nowhere. Why continue to fight? But the reason that Oliver Stone explains why the atomic bomb was dropped, not so much to save millions of lives from being invaded by Japan, but it was more of a statement, because America knew that if Russia got involved with the Pacific theater, then any involvement would kind of mean they would have a place at the table for negotiations, that Russia could get a piece of post-war Japan. America just had the feeling that communism would be spreading, and they didn't want that at all. So really, the atomic bomb dropping was a statement to Russia that, hey, look what we have. We have a really fancy toy, and you don't want us to use it on you. So that was the truth behind the atomic bomb. And it was really perplexing and really made me think about what we had learned in history class. And then the rest of the series and the documentary just sputtered out of control and talked too much about third world countries being on the brink of communism or capitalism, being controlled by dictators that America had hand-selected, or how we were fighting the Cubans, and just too much about communism. And it just got boring after a while. So afterwards, the episodes go on and on and on about communism, militarization, expansion of the U.S. government, and the arms race. Oliver Stone goes into talking about Eisenhower, a World War II general hero, how he really ramped up the stockade of all the nuclear bombs. What was surprising that I think he should have mentioned was a term I learned in contemporary U.S. history, the vital center. It's a political term that was used throughout the Cold War era, especially in the 50s and 60s. The vital center was an unspoken truce, an agreement that the American people expected of the government, from the left and from the right, that you had to dole out as much money as it took to fund the resources to fight communism. It was that center agreement, that center focus of one enemy that America had, communism. And it was a term that I think, being as liberal as Kuznick and Stone are, they would have used it to kind of shoot at the government, kind of, again, call out the government, exposing them for their damning militarization. Stone talks about the 1960s, especially with Kennedy, the two Kennedys, John Kennedy, where he became president, and the Bay of Pigs invasion being a mishap, and then the Cuban Missile Crisis, where he was being hawked down by Joint Chiefs of Staff and other former military men and military advisors saying, you must invade, you must take military action. The Soviet Union, they're hellbent. They're ready for war because of the missiles coming into the Western Hemisphere. Now, Stone does give a glimmer of hope in this dark documentary of the USA and the USSR coming together, talking of peace. And that's after the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy and Khrushchev reaching hands out to shake on it, to denuclearize the stockpile of warheads that they've accumulated over the last 2 decades. Well, but alas, both of them were removed from power. They didn't see it to the end. One of them was taken out through conspiracy, through the intelligence agency in their country, and in a way through a coup, and the other one was shot in Dallas. Go figure. Kennedy curse. When Stone talks about the Vietnam War, he talks about the draft, the unnecessary invasion, why it seemed like we were losing because we were invading the country that was trying to fight for their independence. Going on to the end of the war, I'm surprised he didn't mention Operation Breakfast, which was, under Nixon, the delayment of peace talks in 1972. The reason why he delayed the peace talks was to be reelected. It sounds very unethical. Nixon knew the standard of the American voters, knew the paradigm, knew that you reelect a president during times of war. They reelected Abraham Lincoln. They reelected Woodrow Wilson. It wasn't an official time of war, but it was during World War I. They reelected FDR. Then you had George W. Bush reelected during the Iraqi War, and same with President Obama. It seems like Oliver Stone and Peter Kuznick are really upset that people would reelect a president, but that's just the pattern, and Nixon knew it. And Operation Breakfast was further bombing of Vietnam to delay peace talks, and then to be like, oh, well, let's step back, let's talk peace now, once he was already reelected. So something that should have been mentioned